thank you for coming back here after lunch. And dear guests, dear participants, welcome to our next panel, Green Cities and Urban Development, Local Unaware Policies. We have an honor to present you 3 interesting stories. Today with us are Jan Lujjeten from Nijmegen, Netherlands, EU Green Capital from Europe, Nikoleta Petković, representative of Cooperation and Development Eastern Europe, CDN, and Siniša Trkulja, advisor in the sector for spatial and urban planning of the Ministry of Construction, Transport and Infrastructure of Republic of Serbia. Our first speaker on this panel will be our special guest, Jan Lujjeten from Nijmegen, if it's correct, European Green Capital. He is a senior sustainability advisor in the Nijmegen city region, the Netherlands. He works on a learning region which is developing into a living lab of the future-proof circular economy. In his presentation, we will find out why Nijmegen is green capital and something about context and about process, how to stimulate circular economy, and if the local government have good instruments, what are the most important lessons from this process? Dear Jan, you have the floor.
Good afternoon, everybody, ladies and gentlemen. I'm very proud here to tell you something about Nijmegen Green Capital and the green economy, and about the role of the government, because the government has got good instruments to stimulate the green economy. As told before, I'm working for the municipality of Nijmegen as well, for the whole region of Arnhem Nijmegen, our twin city, Arnhem, and it's much bigger area to work with. There are good knowledge institutes like Garde University, Avant University, and a lot of knowledge about new techniques and about governance and finance, and that's we are starting with the living lab. Why is that so important? Because we talk about, it is my conviction, the worldwide problems, and we have to organize it very locally. We have to start very locally, and it's getting influence on our daily life, and yeah, the government must take the first step. My presentation will take about 20 minutes, but please feel free to ask questions about it. And I will consider 3 questions. Why Nijmegen Green Capital? What is it? What can the government do? And I want to show you some results. At the end of my story, I will summarize and I will give some recommendation and come into conclusion. As you see here on this picture, you see a building of the center of Nijmegen. That's the visitor center for the citizens and tourists in Nijmegen. So if you ever want to come to Nijmegen, you have to start here. Now let's move on to the other slide. I will tell you something about the city of Nijmegen, some features. It's not a big city, such as Belgrade. It's only 170,000 people, some inhabitants. More than 50% of the people are highly educated, so that gives them a little bit another DNA and a lot of awareness in the city. It's a typical female city, and we have another number. Does anybody know here what 250,000 stands for? What should it be? It's our bicycle. I'm very proud to tell you it's the oldest city of Nijmegen. It's not only a cycling region and cycling city, it's also a walking city. Because every year in the 3rd week of July, you have the 4-day marches. People from all around the world come to visit Nijmegen for 4 days marches, and that's more than 500 million people in 1 week visitors. So here you can see where Nijmegen is located. It's located in the eastern part of Holland, only a few kilometers from the German border. And our twin city, as I mentioned, is Ireland. And Ireland has a very modern industry on hydrogen, fuel cells, electricity storage, so we work a lot together. And in the picture on the right, you see the new industrial area in Nijmegen. And now, a few years ago, there was a huge coal power plant. So the city is visibly changing. Now I'm going to tell you about the green capital. But you see here, it's a beautiful list of the green capital cities until now. What is Green Capital Award? The Green Capital Award is the most prestigious prize from the EU for member states and related states, and it's for environment, sustainability, and social inclusiveness. You have to have a global model for the rest of Europe, and you have to share your knowledge, and so that's why I'm here. And I was told that the city of Belgrade always announced a candidacy for the green capital, so probably we can work together. That's why I'm here. And it took some effort to get a green capital with all these cities. It took them 3 years candidacy. We would have been that first time, only the third time. So anyway, we started already in 2013. So what you need is endurance. It took a lot of effort. And now you want to know why Nijmegen was green capital? Because of two reasons. The first one is about because of the content, and the second one is because of the process, the approach. And we have in our program of Green Capital 5 themes. The first one is the vital city. It's about green. There are a lot of parks in the city, and in every neighborhood we have 150 heroes who clean up the city every year. And the second one is the wind energy transition. And at the northern part of Nijmegen there was a foundation of citizens, of the grassroots movement, not by the government, but of the citizens who want to build 4 or 5 windmills, and that's enough for 7,000 households for the electricity to use. And there's a foundation of 150 members, and the government only helped. It's of the city itself. That was important. The third one is what you see above is an extra river channel, because due to climate adaptation, the river Waal needed more room. The national government started with a top-down approach. We said to give the citizens and more bottom-up approach. And now there was at the end of the story, there was a design. The people were proud of it. In the beginning, they were very angry. Now they're very proud of it. Beautiful area of recreation. And fourth one, I'm going to tell you something more about the circular economy and the waste methodology. And the last one, Nijmegen on smart mobility, clean mobility. We have 60 kilometers of fast lane and cycling routes for the 250,000. The approach, we were very convinced that the jury of the Green Capital announced the choose for Nijmegen because of the engagement and the power of the citizens and the stakeholders, the collaboration all together. That was the difference. That was good organized. So we consider the prize, not for the municipality of Nijmegen, we consider the prize for the whole city of Nijmegen. And in Nijmegen, a few years ago, the doors were opened to collaborate and put working together. That was the main thing. And what does the Green Capital mean to us? First one, we have to be a role model for mid-sized cities in Europe. The second, we want to improve our policy and overall projects. We want to get well known as a green city. It's good for the green economy and for the tourism. So that's why. So let's move on to the north side. I won't convince you this slide why the economy is so important. You heard it already. The awareness is good enough here in the here in Belgrade, what I did today, so let's move on to the other one. Circular economy means for us and for the companies find new ways to earn money by zero waste management. That means recycling isn't good enough. It's also about rethinking, reusing, repairing, and designing the product in a different way, shared and services. For instance, your clothes washing, you can pay for the washing, right? But not for the washing machine anymore. So that's a different way of thinking about. But the main problem is the true external costs for companies. That's the biggest problem because they are not in the price. So we have to find new business models. And the university at Nijmegen has got a lot of knowledge about the new business models. So that's quite interesting that we would like to share. And why should businesses involve? You're told that it's the new economy of the future. Also, business want to become future resilient, and we asked some companies, and these lists, we heard a lot of times that business mentioned it as the most important argument to start with. Now, and we have the EU. So we're looking a lot at the new regulation, the programs of the EU. Now in 2018 there's new legislation, for instance for the number of recycling of citizens, and I'm very proud that the citizens of Nijmegen already achieved that goal from 2013 now to 72%. And the citizens choose always the green party, so for 16 years, so we have consistent policy, that's very important. And we're working on closing the loop, peer-to-peer, good programs of the EU to share information. Now, another thing is the infrastructure of the public part of the waste management. Here in Nijmegen, in Holland, it shows that 4 more main waste streams the government can collect it at home, and there is a possibility for glass and textiles, and we can bring for more than 50 waste streams at the recycling center where you can deliver your waste. So that's how it is organized for the municipality waste in Nijmegen. The most important thing of my story, the role of the government is very rapidly changing. We started 100 years ago as the government stands for rules, for giving permits, enforcement to the governments, and that's very because of the law. In the 80s we saw we had to perform a little bit more. The government has become more lean and mean and getting the most efficiently way. And some 20 years ago, we discovered that we, in the policy, you have to work together with your stakeholders. But now, the last 10 years, we discovered that you have to recognize a movement in society by grassroots, by foundations, by citizens. You have to help them. That's quite another. And all the 4 goals are very important, but for the European Brain Capital, the last one was the most important. Because we have to help and becoming a responsive government. That's important. And responsive government, that we have to find the right energy in the society. We can help them by to speed up the procedures. We can give them money for business cases, making business cases. And the most important one is procurement. And then we started with procurement, and that's the best instrument to start with and tell it to the people. And so you can help the market who wants to innovate. I'll give you some examples, and then we'll before I jump into the conclusions. This is the first one. As I told you, procurement. So 10 years ago, we discovered that there was a huge possibility for 200 buses in the area to connect the world of waste management, the mobility, economy, sustainability, and environment in the procurement of 200 buses. And we decided to choose for the making biogas 10 years ago out of the collection of the waste, of organic waste by citizens, and to build up an infrastructure. And it was a huge boost for the regional economy. And now we are making plans for the next step in the biogas going into hydrogen. So we can influence the market. We did it 2 years ago and made a good preparation. Also with the energy we buy, the purchase of electricity, we ask that to the market for your own buildings. So procurement, that's my opinion, is very important to start with. And I heard Natasha is very fan of the procurement in Serbia, so you can, everyone who can help Natasha, please help. The second is in the public space, there are some bridges and materials, and we want to try to innovate it with 3D printing because there is no waste if you choose this method. It is rather new, and there are some risks. And by spreading the risk and the liability, if anything goes wrong, spread your risk from the market to the government, and there will be room for innovation. The third example is creating a movement. On the left side, you see a totally circular furniture house, and what you see, the couch, the carpet is made of fishing nets out of the ocean. The couch is from old bottles, from plastics. The small furniture is from banana leaves. It's called bio-based economy. And it's always presented in one example for citizens and tell it to all people. The last example I will tell, it's about endorsement. If you got a good entrepreneur, let it show it to the public. Does anybody know who that is lying on this furniture, the public space? It's our king. It's King Willem-Alexander of the Netherlands, lying on the back, and it's made of old electronics, old waste, and he makes some furniture to tell your story. On the right side you see our mayor, and in the middle you see entrepreneur. He's very proud to tell it and inspire. So, in conclusion, at the beginning of my presentation, I told you I would consider 3 questions. So, why I made green capital? The most important thing is to get a good society. I would tell something about the influence of the government, for instance, procurement, and some results. Now, in conclusion, the main thing is, without the power of the citizens, we would never be awarded green capital. That's the main thing. To stimulate the green economy, the government can do a lot by being responsive, responsible, and taking responsibility. Both are very important. And the last one, build a living lab, a good combination, collaboration with your stakeholders, to not only be in green capital in 2018, but also for the next years. And my final statement is, we're talking about worldwide problems, start with the regional economy, and share your knowledge that even on the European scale. Okay, thank you.
This is a fantastic presentation. Please save the question if you have them for later. You can ask our guest after all 3 presentations. Now we will hear our next speaker. At the crossroads between social, environmental and economic issues, the commons are a tool to collectively reinvent and share prosperity. Beyond natural resources, they are a way to rethink the production and management of goods, such as culture, transport and housing, but also their collective reappropriation by the citizens beyond the traditional state-market dichotomy. Our next speaker is Nikoleta Petković. She is green activist, member of Serbian Green Youth, executive committee member of CDN, and coordinator of CDN's Alternative Urbanizations Working Group. She will talk about the role and activism of young people in the green transformation of cities and present a project named Urban Steps for Resilient Future. Nikoleta, please start your presentation.
Thank you very much for the invitation. As Violeta said, I'm here on behalf of CDN, Cooperation Development Network Eastern Europe, to present a project that we did this year, and it's still in process, let's say its last phase, and it's called Urban Steps for Resilient Future. Briefly about CDN. CDN is a network of youth green organization and serves for capacity building for the green movement in Eastern Europe. Together 16 member organizations and 6 partner organizations all around Eastern Europe in 3 regions, meaning Balkans, Caucasus and Turkey, South Caucasus and Turkey, and we call it Avant, which is Russia, Ukraine, Moldova, Belarus. So very large region. And what CDN does, CDN strives to gather the green organizations, green youth organizations, to share the experience, learn from each other, network, but also to commonly express their political stance. About this project, I will try to go through this presentation to how did we as a youth green organization came to the point of dealing with this topic, or why did we come here, how did we do it, and what were some concrete things that we managed to do with this one-year-long project. First, let's start with the why. Well, if we're speaking about the context of Eastern Europe, and about the urban policies and about the urban development in general, we can witness a lot of things happening, especially in the past 5 years. We can see that there have been a lot of different protests that were mostly led by young people who aim to kind of reclaim their right to public space, and not only. Most of these protests were a reaction to something not working in the urban life, right? And later, some of them escalated into much larger movements. We can see the fire concert here, 2013, Belgrade Waterfront, or anti-Belgrade Waterfront protests in 2014 and 15. This is Skopje, and the Colorful Revolution, as they call it, in 2013-18. And the newest one, Georgian youth dancing on the streets of Tbilisi in 2018. Also things happening in Croatia, in Macedonia, in whole Adriatic coast pretty much, and as well in Armenia, pretty much everywhere. So why are the young people in the frontier of these battles for justice for the green cities? If we take into consideration that the unemployment rate of young people in Eastern Europe is still very high, and that most of the young people are still economically dependent on their parents, right, and living with their parents, and not owning their transportation means or anything like that. It's obvious why they care for affordable housing, why they care for the topic of sustainable and good system of transportation, in general good infrastructure in the city, and especially the public space, which in context of Eastern Europe, and when I say Eastern Europe, I mean mostly like post-socialist societies and transition to neoliberal societies and shrinking of the public space and privatization of public space sometimes. You can see why are the young people angry. So I'm explaining the whole context because this is how the Alternative Urbanization Working Group was formed. We were the young people interested in the topic, and we said, okay, let's see what do we do, what do we know about this topic. Students of urbanism, architecture, landscape architecture, economy, political science, and not only. And we started discussing the topic of how do we build green cities and more sustainable cities and just cities for everyone. And this is how this project was born. During these few years, while we were discussing the topic of alternative urbanization, we came to the conclusion that it is one of the core green values, because cities are the platform where we can build the socially just and like environmentally just society. Right? Okay, so we knew that we want to work something with this, and we see that the young people are up to the topic, but we weren't really sure how do we do it. And we said, okay, we have CDN. CDN is a capacity building network which serves to help young people do something on a very local level by providing them with skills-based trainings and topical education. And we aim to empower young people like us to reshape their communities by offering them space where we can communicate and talk about the alternatives to the current urbanization and giving them some skill-based trainings, which would eventually enable them to articulate their political demands towards the authorities and that from a very local level. So this whole project that started, well, the preparation started about a year ago, but like the project started in April with the first activity, was coordinated by a group of young people who did volunteering with the support of CDN Secretariat through methods of non-formal and peer-to-peer education, which is something that the CDN usually uses as methods. And yeah, one of the ideas with these projects, comparing to some other activist trainings and seminars, was let's avoid the follow-up trap. Follow-up trap meaning people come to seminars, they talk, they learn, and they go home and we don't know what happens next. So let's make a space where they can also, in the scope of the project, do something in their cities or area. So what did we do? We organized a project that has three main steps. First one was the international training for trainers in Istanbul and Lujjeten. Then during the summer we had 4 regional trainings, 2 on Balkans, one in South Caucasus and one in the Rum region. And we aim to have up to 15 local actions. We will have 13 of them. Some of them happen, some of them are happening right now during the autumn. The first step, as I said, was training for trainers in Istanbul. And this was an international event that brought people from 16 different countries, 35 of them, to discuss the alternative to urbanization, to discuss, first of all, what are the common problems. So the context is very big, right? There are some common struggles, but there are other things that are different from region to region or from country to country. So people were speaking about some very common problems such as pollution in the cities or overconsumption in the cities, but they were also speaking about things that are maybe more characteristic for Eastern Europe, such as like narrowing the public space or privatization of public space and commodification of some public services and stuff like that. So people covered different topics, exchanged different ideas on how some things can be tackled. We brought some professionals also who spoke with people on the topic of commons. There was our friend here from Voikos in the Netherlands. And we also organized 2-day training skills in advocacy and project management, because we thought, okay, we're speaking about this topic, the participants were very mixed. So some of them were interested in topics, some of them were green activists in general, but didn't know so much. So they had, like, let's say, different level of skills and of knowledge. We give them these 2 trainings so that they can also do something when they go back home. The results of these trainings were the common manifesto, expressing the common ideas on what kind of cities we want in Eastern Europe. And the draftings for these regional trainings that organized 4 regional trainings were made of coordination team and of participants of this training. So this is how it looked in Istanbul. As I mentioned, it's a non-formal and peer-to-peer education, so we were basically learning from each other and exchanging ideas. Then during the summer we had 4 regional trainings, and people from Istanbul tried to put down this into regional context, these skills that they learned and the knowledge that they gained in Istanbul. They also did the past analysis for their regions, and they They came up with various topics that they would like to tackle in their region, was the public transportation systems that are not working at all. In Balkans, it was mostly about public spaces, so it was really, there were some similarities, but there were different things as well. And they made local action plans for the local activities, which were the third step of the project. We supported them with small grants, close 300 euros, and kind of like hope that they will also go funds to do some kind of local actions. These are the trainings that were happening in July and in August and June. And now we are at this third phase of the project, which are the local actions actually happening. So the idea was that after everything happens, people go home and do something with a very local level. When we say something, it could be anything, whatever they see that is relevant for their communities. So it could be advocating for some change and trying to involve directly with authorities, or doing something guerrilla if they thought that that's the best way to tackle the problems that they see as urgent. What is happening are 13 local elections in 10 countries right now. And what are some of the good results from this is like green activists cooperating with other urban activists in their local communities, and actually cooperating with the communities itself in order to do something. As I said, most of the local actions are about to happen. Now it's in the beginning of November. Some of them already happened. These are just some of the examples with what people came up. The first one is from Georgia. People were advocating for the sharing policy that doesn't exist for many, many years, and they were trying to convince the authorities that share would be a very good solution for a city that is pretty linear and that has a lot of traffic problems. The second picture is from Serbia. A few days ago, the people from Serbia Green Youth organized a few-day event on overconsumption, and especially with emphasizing on roads in cities and the critique of textile and fashion industry. So this is like them doing the exchange of clothes in the park. And the last one is from Montenegro. They're doing a series of murals, and this is the call that they made. People had different ideas. Some of them wanted to, in Macedonia, they are trying to organize, to take over one abandoned place and to make it some kind of place for young people. Similar thing is happening in Bosnia, because people coming from Tuzla that were in our event said that one of the biggest problems for them is that they don't have spaces, young people, where they can gather. So they are now discussing with the municipality of what to do there. Some additional results. We are now working on this publication that should be translated into 4 languages, and that should sum up the conclusions from the project and also give some advices and tools for other urban activists from Eastern Europe and not only as we are. And we also have an online course on Green European Foundations platform. You can check it out and enroll. I think it's now open for public. Another additional result is that we saw that people are still willing to do. I mean, like what I didn't emphasize in the beginning, this project was completely organized by volunteers who gathered on one event like this and said, okay, we want to do something more on this topic, let's discuss, let's write something. And now more and more people are joining the alternative organization working group, which is, by the way, open for anyone, so you can check our blog or CDO's website and contact us if you want to learn and discuss with us. The conclusions that we got from the project, so the project is not still over, but we are coming to its end. But not only from the project, but general discussions within the alternative organization working group throughout these past few years, is that we see participation as the most important tool for creating the green and just cities. And that's something that we as young people, coming mostly from Eastern Europe, still see lacking. In order to create the cities that are for all, you have to involve everyone, right? And for this you need a strong political will and tools and mechanisms for participatory decision making. So, also here is the importance of local communities expressing their needs and trying trying to act on a very local level to express their demands and to do something with the problems and to say what they actually want from the space that they live in. Here we always discuss different alternatives. Violeta mentioned commons. This was, I thought that, I heard that you talked about commons this morning, so I know that you're familiar with the concept, which is still quite new here, right? It's still something that people are exploring and trying to see if it works in this context. And I think that I see commons, and like we in the working group are also seeing commons as one of the great tools for creating more sustainable communities, not only environmentally or socially, but also economically, especially if we're speaking in terms of green economy and sustainable cities. The problem with having the commons is that they don't exist in vacuum, right? So you need again strong political will to enable people to create this kind of communities that are together sharing some resources and deciding how they want to use the space. So yeah, that would be also the need of innovation and discussing alternatives, which again I would like to emphasize is always about putting things in context, about what do we have here, what are some of the things that are common struggles, and what can we do about this. Thanks.
Go on our next speaker. Siniša Trkulja is an advisor in the Center for
National Territorial Policy and National Urban Policy are two policies which are dealing with the space, with the territory. Territorial policy, it deals with the territory of the whole country, and urban policy deals with cities. So today I'm going to speak more about cities. Why about cities? Because those are places which are generating growth, and they're important for economy, for well-being. But they are also generating more pollution than the rest of the territory. So that's where we have that green economy that we really need. What is above the line? Those are some international recommendations for urban development, and here above the line are some local strategies that we have, local urban development strategies that we have in Serbia. So it's very important to have cooperation among different levels. To use international recommendations, to act at national level, to coordinate, let's say, the activities at local level. But not to impose things to the local level, but to really to have that relation of partnership with local level, to see local communities as partners. And it's very difficult in our country when I say as somebody who works for the government, you'll say, ha ha ha, government partners, local communities. But it's possible, and really it's an effort that should be made in our country, really to see local communities as partners, but not as somebody that you should just give lessons and make control. Okay, I'll start by some international recommendations that we use in Serbia. Now it's in the process. We are making the first strategy of urban development for Serbia. And it is now, during 3 weeks, it's in the public hearing, so there is a public debate about it. And you have opportunity to participate in it, because until Monday you can send comments for that national urban strategy of Serbia. And you can download it at the portal of e-governance of Serbia, e-uprava. So you can go there and you can find the draft version of that urban strategy, which should be adopted by the end of the year. Which are recommendations, international recommendations that we are using? The first row, there is an urban agenda of European Union, which was adopted in 2016. Those small pictures are representing 12 topics of that urban agenda of European Union. Here, this one, for example, it represents circular economy. This one is climate change. This is integration of migrants and the refugees. This is public procurement. This is urban mobility, and so on. Another recommendation, so this is the European level. and this is the recommendation from global level. I think that most of you are familiar here with Sustainable Development Goals that we have, that were adopted in 2015. So among those 17 sustainable goals, there is goal number 11, which is dealing directly with cities. So that cities should be sustainable, resilient, safe, and inclusive. In the ministry where I work, we mostly implemented this goal. But you should not just, when you work on some development issue, you shouldn't just focus on your topic. You should take into account all other topics as well. You should have that integrated approach, because if you, for example, in green economy, if you forget the environmental part, your economy is not going to work well. You have to take into account the environment to have better economy, and the other way around. Also, for environment, economical story is important as well. So each of those 17 objectives has targets, and the goal 11 has 10 targets, which deal with housing, urban mobility, participation of citizens, cultural and natural heritage, disasters, public spaces as well. Nikoleta was talking about public spaces, and so on. Some important sustainable development goals for the topic of green economy are this one, number 8, which is dealing with economic growth, and this one, number 12, about responsible patterns of consumption and production. So, and under that goal, you have some targets which are really relevant for green economy. This is the global document which is implementing the goal 11. So it is New Urban Agenda, which was adopted in 2016 in Quito, in Ecuador. And what we are doing in Serbia with our National Urban Development Strategy, we are adopting this global document to our national context. So we are not just taking it and doing copy-paste. We are really adopting the solutions from New Urban Agenda, global one, to our national context. Those are some recommendations of UN organization, UN Habitat, about green economy. So this is working with nature, how to use nature in the best way for the economy, and how to take into account green spaces and protected areas. This is something, another important topic is to increase the density of built space. Because you know, maybe you've heard for urban sprawl, that's something that we have in Serbia a lot with illegal construction. So the urban tissue is going to the agricultural land, and that is something that shouldn't happen. We should preserve that agricultural land. And that's why in the urban strategy of Republic of Serbia we support the topic of brownfields. More to have brownfield investments than greenfield investments. Unfortunately in Serbia we have quite a lot of greenfield investments. And brownfield investments need a bit more effort because it's a space where something has existed already before. But in the long term they are very important. So this is also a clustering for competitiveness. It means that people should get together, share experiences and exchange experiences, and to cooperate to have better results. And this is of course optimizing infrastructure, which is very important to have good infrastructure, to have green economy. This is the document, what I mentioned in the beginning, our national territorial policy that we already have. Spatial Plan of Serbia, we have had one which was made in 1996. It was the first spatial plan of Republic of Serbia until 2010, and this is the current one from 2010 to 2020. So we should make the next one from 2020 to 2030 or 35. The topic of economy in Spatial Plan of Serbia is present as well. I'm not going to tell too much. Another thing, it's important not to have only national spatial plan, but to have spatial plans at different levels. In Serbia we have 9 regional spatial plans. We have all spatial plans for all local communities in Serbia. And here Kosovo is not presented because it's a specific case. And then we have spatial plans for special purposes, like infrastructure, natural and cultural protected areas, water accumulations, and mining areas. Those are some topics that we are dealing with in our national urban strategy. So as I told you, it should be integrated approach is very important. So as you can see here, we have public spaces, we also have urban mobility, yes, it's here. We have climate change, we have of course the topic of environment, of hazards and natural disasters, brownfields that I already mentioned. So those are some 20 packages, measure packages that we have in this draft that you can find on the internet and that you can give comments until Monday. One very important topic is the topic of governance, where we have to have better institutions, where financing of urban development is very important. The topic of digitalization is also important, and you can see also the topic of participation. In that, among the measures of the urban development strategy, the first measure that you can find in that draft is dealing with the green economy. So it is together with promotion of innovation and development of low carbon resource efficient green economy. So now we have that measure defined now in the draft version that should be adopted by the end of the year. Now, after that we have 3 months to make action plan for the implementation of that strategy. It is going to be the action plan for the first 3 years of the implementation of the strategy. And in that action plan we can define concrete activities for the implementation of those measures. Green economies is here in the package which is called local economic development. And this is the last slide for my presentation. It is a very important aspect of regional cooperation, as we call it now, cooperation in the southeastern Europe and in the Western Balkans. As you can see, I told you I work at the national level, a national institution, but those are some, this is the local level of implementation of those policies. And there is a supranational or transboundary level. We have cross-border cooperation here, transnational cooperation, and also cooperation in the framework of European continent, as we are a candidate country for the European Union. This is Southeast Europe region, where we had already a few projects realized up to now, and it is very often financed by European Union funds. We have IPA funds for the region of Western Balkans countries which are not in the European Union yet. And IPA funds are available for those countries. I mentioned the Western Balkans region. This year, one network on territorial governance in Western Balkans was created in Tirana with participation of all Western Balkan countries, so Serbia, Montenegro, Macedonia, Albania, and Bosnia and Herzegovina. So there is that Western Balkan network on territorial governance, which deals with all those topics, and also topic of green economy is one of the topics which is present in that cooperation. I try to tell you lots of things in this short time, but I really believe that this strategy that we should have adopted by the end of the year can really raise awareness on the importance of the topics of urban development and as you could see, green economy is one of the topics of urban development as well. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Siniša. participants, it's time for your question, if you have it. Do you have some question? Okay.
Maybe it's more like a comment. I'm a huge fan of the strategic documents in Serbia. As you said on the end of your presentation, this strategic document will help to raise awareness of the importance of the topics. And this is probably the biggest success of this strategic plan. So maybe this is the best show or best example how we basically treat our strategic documents. They are there for raising awareness, not to be implemented, not to be strategic direction what should be done in Serbia, but they are like fairy tales. Like what will be nice to do in the Serbia. In the meantime, without this strategy, we have the urban cities in Novi Sad, Belgrade destroyed by the local governance, totally devastated with investors' interest, without any kind of communication, or even if there is communication, is look on it like terroristic attack, officially on the media or non-officially under the cover. So I'm, as I said, fan to the strategic documents, and I'm disappointed in the work of the ministry that is allowing destruction of the urban centers and urban cities that are from the good planned cities, as Novi Sad was, are start to be places from where you want to run away because of traffic, because of totally unplanned building, because every possible green area is totally changing the parking space or in the huge building without any, let's say, sense of the future, how do you say, future possibility to enjoy these cities. So this is what I see and what is my, let's say, small comment on the new strategy.
Okay, thank you for your comment. I'm very glad that you are speaking out because it's important. I was talking about participation, so you have the opportunity to read this document. I would like to invite you sincerely to read this document and to send me the comments. There is my email address there, and to send me comments. I can give you my card after as well. I think it's that it is very important to react, and I can say that I agree with you in a part of things that you are saying, but on the other side we have to do something, and this strategy is really we are trying to, through this strategy, to improve things. I agree with you that we have too many strategic documents which are not coordinated among themselves, which are not implemented enough. You're going to see I had a struggle because in the ministry I was coordinating the elaboration of this document. We had a group of experts from Serbia and some experts from Germany as well. I was struggling with experts who are making a big part of the strategy analysis. So they wanted to have 40 pages of analysis and maybe 5 pages of implementation. And as you say, it's a fairy tale. It's just a story, what we have, and implementation much less important than the part of the analysis. And by the way, that analysis is not good enough. It's not enough evidence-based. So the struggle that I had, I managed to reduce the part of analysis to 20 pages because it's boring reading 40 pages of analysis. And I tried to put the accent on the measures that we had. What experts were proposing? They were proposing some measures to change the system of economy of the country, some measure which is not implementable at all. So I tried from 150 measures that they proposed to reduce to some 80 measures, which is still too much. But this strategy is made for the period of 12 years. So to have some measures that should be implementable, because without implementations, I agree with you, there is no sense of making a strategy. However, strategies are necessary. We need them. The problem is that we don't know how to use them. We have too many strategies in the country, and maybe, I don't know if you have that information, in April this year we have one new law which was adopted, which is called Law on Planning System. That law should bring some more order in those strategies that we have, because strategies are even contradictory from one to the other. One strategy is saying this, the other about the same topic is saying another thing. So that law and planning system should improve coordination and harmonization among strategies. So we have a lot to do. What is, and we are at the very beginning. If we look this as a history, we are in prehistory, you know, in the Stone Age. So we have to be aware that we are in the beginning for some things. But that's why participation is really important. And when I mentioned awareness, it's not the only aim of this strategy. It's one very important aim of this strategy. I'm sure that here in this room are mostly people who are aware of the topics which are important for urban development, for green economy, and so on. But if you see general public, we have a huge problem of awareness. So it's one of the topics that this strategy is dealing with. It's definitely not the only one, and I completely agree with you that it shouldn't be the only one. It shouldn't stop there. So please get involved and please get active. I just work for the ministry, but I don't work for the government or power or political party or whatever. I work for this country, and it is our common thing, this strategy. It's not a strategy of the ministry or strategy of, I don't know, whoever. It's a strategy for all of us. So I sincerely invite you to look at the document and to send your comments and suggestions and whatever. Thank you.
Thank you, Siniša, for your answer. Do we have any question? Okay.
Hello, my name is Katarina, and I have a question for Mr. Jan, who is presenting everything about the city, who is a green capital of 2018. And I got really inspired by that talk that you had. And my question is, how did the city manage to make such a large amount of people to get involved? And more importantly, how did you manage to make government such involved into that question, and how did you raise awareness between people to take participation and to really join that project and give their best to make city a green capital? Because people here in Serbia are mostly not that interested. I mean, whenever you talk about a green economy or something that has to do something with sustainable development, protection of the environment, people are either not interested, either the government is. Because we here in Serbia have a very big problem of mini hydropower plants. About that question, many thousands of people are gathered together in one voice to show the government and the whole political system in Serbia that they do not agree with that, but nobody is responding to that question, either is something changing. So even when we have people who are joined in one voice to protect nature, either you have the non-interest from the government, either, nothing is changing. So how could we do something as young people, as young professionals tomorrow to change something? Thank you.
Thank you. It's a very important question. I hear two questions in your story. The first one was about the huge government with so many participants and how to organize. And the second I heard probably the situation in Belgrade is somewhat different than in Nijmegen, so it's starting in a different way. For the last question, I agree, I think it's very true. Nijmegen got a very luxurious proposition because the highly educated people, everyone goes for the Green Party for 16 years, so we were able to build up a very consistent policy and tried everything. They accepted, they wanted even more, the people in society, so that was a little bit a different situation. but also the second question with the governance. During the Green Capital year, there were 200 events. 200. That's a lot. That's a huge program. There were tree planting days, veggie days, healthcare symposia. So much. 200 of them, and 90% of them were organized by people in the city, and only 10% by the municipality. And what was the governance, the awareness, and the stakeholders? It was already there, but until a few years ago, these two worlds were not connected enough with each other. And Green Capital was a window of opportunity to connect them and bring all the energy together and go for it. And that's what happened in Nijmegen. And now we want to hold on that energy and go further with it and to continue. Your last question was about how would it be here in Belgrade, and I think and it's also with the last question. I agree with my speaker that you need good strategies and policies, and it's all needed. And very hard, but it's not the only answer to the question. It's all top down and bottom up. You need the good examples and show it and tell it. You need that for your policy. And I think probably start with green procurement. I heard that there's a new law in Serbia for procurement can become green. Take that chance, buy electric buses, study good, make a good study and start with it and tell it. And write down on the buses that where your energy comes from, or organize waste parties with textile and give them back to the people. Start bottom up, create a grassroots movement, and challenge them. There you have to start. It's so much important because a top-down good strategy isn't good enough. It has to work together with bottom-up approach, like you told, with younger people on education, on schools, veggie days, organize it. It's bottom-up and top-down together.
I ask you a question also, where do you want to start with tomorrow? And to have a project, do you have something have in mind, what you want to set up with other people? You mentioned the young people, you want to start with something. I saw the example was shown to someone on the national TV. It was on your television to clean up garbage, plastic garbage in a river or a lake, and they showed it on television. And the next day, they want to clean it up. So get the attention, make noise, whatever.
The problem is that we here in Serbia have a little bit problems with communication coming from the bottom to up. I think that's the first thing that should change here, to have space, public space, where you can promote your actions. That's the main problem that needs to be solved, and it's a huge problem to start anything here. But I'm inspired, and that's the main thing, I think.
For 10 years ago, I was in Estonia, in Tallinn. There was a cleanup day. All the citizens would go to work and clean up the city in one day. It was a huge amount, with a lot of publicity. And then where it started, the Belgrade movement. We have to find something to start with people. Find the energy.
Start with 10 people.
I will try. Thank you.
Okay, now it's time for the short coffee break, but really short coffee break, because we have another two very interesting issues. Thank you, Jan, Nikoleta, and Siniša. Thank you for your attentions, and please come
The speaker will be Anna Larsson. She has a formal education and long-term experience in the area of solid waste management. Her professional career has been dedicated to